Go live. Hello and welcome. You're not going to believe this. I did nothing since last week, and now it's recording while it's streaming. Nothing has changed on my computer.
What?
I hate this. I do not know computers at fucking all. I have people ask me about computers. I'm like, don't ask me.
That's
Welcome to
funny.
another episode of Loose Canon, where we always spend, guaranteed, the only thing we can guarantee is we always spend the first 20 seconds talking about whether or not it's recording. And so we're back again. I I gotta clean up my room here because I hate this green screen. It's fuzzing out on my hands. It's not doing it good. For any of our audio listeners, I have a green screen of Titan up on my background, and it's so distracting. I need to take my meds before we do the show. I'm all over the place right now. I'm sorry. We're back again. The seasonal story has concluded, and thankfully, the API has been very generous this time around, as opposed to last season. And we have the entire lore book to our disposal. So we are going to be covering the lore book purpose today, and some other things that I think would be fun to cover. So we hope it's a good show for everyone. How was your past weeks been with the finale
Um,
and everything?
yeah, so we've been playing, consistently every night, about an
Okay.
hour, 2 hours, sometimes a little bit more if I get home early in the afternoon. And I gotta say, man, I've played more this season than any other season in a while. Like, I don't think. Let's see, when was the last time I played this much? Probably back in Beyond Light, right when it started.
Hmm.
But now, like, because the power curve was so
Yeah.
difficult, I stopped cold. So I would say,
Hmm.
like, in the first 2 weeks of Beyond Light, I played a lot and then stopped cold. But I haven't played as much as I've been playing now, consistently as much as I was in that 2 weeks of Beyond Light. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it
So,
does
like,
because
yeah,
when it's more accessible, of course you're gonna play more. You're not getting your fucking teeth kicked in as much. It's more fun. I mean, you
exactly.
want it a
And
little bit. You want the challenge, but you don't want it to be like, all right, go run strike 7 more times again, 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 and
right,
incrementally. Yeah, if it was like an interesting way to do it would be if it was like mission based. And it was like this
right,
mission gives you this power level, this mission gives you this power level, and so on. And then you'd have like side missions that are like you can go in this whenever you want. It's only going to get harder if you don't do the previous like structured leveling. That would be, in my opinion, maybe not the best way, but at least an interesting way to change it up.
exactly. And so that accessibility, I know a lot of people, so there's a really good, sorry, this ties in. There's a really good old item in Destiny 1
Uh huh.
that illustrates this perfectly, but I'll butcher the name, but it's a the psychologist who uh, and you learn about it in high school and college and whatnot, but it's this method where challenge and skill have to be balanced in a way that meets your like your skill level has to be challenged,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise you're going to be bored, and
Yeah.
if the challenge is too high, then you're going to be frustrated and not even
Yeah.
rise to that challenge. So there's a sweet spot for everything, right? And Destiny
Absolutely.
has this sweet spot. And so for years we've had this power curve barrier that's just, for me, and probably I speak for a lot of casuals or people just trying out the game for a while or coming back to it. And for me, that wall's always been there. Um, it wasn't always there because I used to be able to play a lot more. And like
Mm-hmm.
D1, I played a lot.
Yeah.
But the wall has always kind of been there, and it to me has always been like this ceiling, and
Mm-hmm.
it's nice that they took that away because now you still have to rise to a certain level, but now it's not so vast and so far beyond my skill level that I have to do these insane things before I can try out or play the thing that everybody gets to enjoy, you know?
Hmm. I
Um,
think that's why Wrath of the Machine will probably always be my favorite raid, because I think about the second phase Axis fight. Like
yeah,
for those who didn't play Destiny 1, you have like this first phase Axis fight where it's kind of like you're fighting half of him, and then after you defeat that part, you have like the real fight where it
yeah,
incorporates the elements of the first fight plus extra. And
yeah,
so in it, it's like it's very, very fast paced, and it feels like you're doing a lot. And you're not really
yeah.
doing that much, because it was like kill this guy, get this gun, shoot that guy, damage phase. And
Right.
that
You're
was kind of
exactly
it.
right. You're
And
exactly right. I think that touches on it on that sweet spot, you know, because that raid in a nutshell was more along the lines of just go in and beat the shit out of the enemies for a while until you overcome it, and it wasn't
yeah.
like
But
large,
specifically,
complicated.
well,
Yeah,
because I think it was a little complicated, but I feel like it really nailed the sweet spot
yeah,
of being like where it's like, okay, I have, because it was like all about the servitors, right? It's like I have the solar servitor, I killed him, or I have the solar captain,
yeah,
I killed him,
yeah,
I have the
yeah,
solar scorch cannon, where's the solar servitor? And it's like, oh, it's over
yeah,
here. And it's like, oh, this person died, and it left room for the hero moments where it's like, oh, well, your right
yeah,
side died. Let's get the left side over there, or the center over there. They got to pick up their gun. They got to bring it over. Okay, it's DPS phase. Where's he going? And then they also had that hidden mechanic that became, I think it was a challenge mode of you can do something. I forgot exactly how it worked. You can do something where you like dunk on these platforms, and you don't have to do this. It's just something that you're able to do. And if you do it, your entire fire team gets a full super every damage phase. And it's just like
Oh, that's right.
it
Yeah, I
was just
remember
like
that. Yeah,
it was so like
yeah,
high energy, and I feel like that's
yeah,
important.
yeah,
Because this, okay,
yeah.
we're standing over here and we're shooting now. Okay, we're standing over here and we're shooting now is a little less fun. Like just add clear, stand here, shoot there. That's, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's kind of the same way with fucking Wrath of the Machine, but they just did it in a better way. I don't know.
So,
It's hard to quantify.
so it's really hard too because, like, if you're, nostalgic, like
Yeah.
nostalgia is just a bitch.
That's a
But
big one.
yeah, and so I mean, for me personally, Vault of Glass will always be my favorite raid just because of nostalgia for nostalgic reasons.
Really?
However, yeah, but that being said, well, just the Vault of Glass was like it was so large and expansive, and then but you were also inside, and it was just it just had this beautiful aesthetic to it. Outside of the difficulty, but like leaping on the walls and trying to find where you're going, and
It was
that
very
weird,
vast.
yeah, it was vast but confined, but also
Hmm.
it just felt like you could go anywhere and look for anything, and like people still say, is there a seventh chest?
You know, Vault of Glass wasn't my favorite raid, but it was one of my favorite locations. I spent hours in Vault of Glass
Yeah,
just trying to like. I'm like, there's got to be something up this fucking rock. They
I think
put a
that was the thing.
sliver of a ledge that I can stand on. There has to be something up here. There never was,
I love
but
I even loved it when we had to go back and find. Like
yeah,
I couldn't even believe that people were able to discover. Like back then, people just ran out and found things, right? So
yeah,
anyway, the ghost. Remember, we had to go back there and find the ghost of
mm-hmm,
Praedyth,
yeah,
and like jumping off that one cliff and then coming back to the wall as you're falling, just in time to land on that one ledge. Like somebody had to figure that out,
mm-hmm.
and so stuff like that just it baffles me the tenacity of the Destiny community, especially back then, to be able to go and brute force things. like you
Well,
brought up that raid, uh, freaking uh, Outbreak Prime.
yeah,
That was insane. Like
that was a big
math,
one.
you got to figure out math for that.
Yeah. Well, so like I don't know. Looking back at it, it just seems so obvious, but to actually be the one to piece it together, because
Yeah.
let me see if I can find an image. You keep talking.
Well, and that's funny you say that because one of the expressions I hate, but it's so true, is hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
Like
No, very
you
true.
can always look back with perfect clarity. When you're in the middle of it, it's like this is so crazy and difficult. But like you look back and you're like, of course that was there. That was so obvious. But when you're in the middle of it, or you don't know, it's just like baffling. Like the stupid maze that we had to find our own grave that
Hmm.
everybody kept trying to figure out where does this go? The labyrinth. Um, Anyway, Vault of Glass is my favorite raid just for nostalgic reasons. However, for playability, I mean, and I know not everybody agrees, but Crota's End and Wrath of the Machine are my two favorites for
Yeah.
playability.
Yeah, no,
I
I fucking loved Crota's End. Before we get into that, or
Yeah.
to something else, so on screen now is the Wrath of the Machine puzzle, and so you basically had these four quadrants surrounding a giant, this like little diamond here in the center is a giant war mind uh cube, and so all these little circles are canisters that you can jump on. And so outside the entrance room, the door at the top here marked entrance, outside that was where another room was. It was like a server room. And in the corners of the server room, you would read binary, and you'd have to read and decode binary to say where the people would go after they stood on these specific four red circles. That's how you start
Yeah.
it. And then you get to read binary. And how they figured out to stand on these four red circles was an even more elaborate thing that we're not going to get into because I don't understand it. I understand this. And I just remember being in this raid to do this because it was like a secret chest. So you wanted to do it every time or something like that. And I just
Yeah.
remember getting so fucking mad when I was the only one who knew how to read binary. Because I was like, how do you not know how to do this? Like, where did you go to high school? I went to a tech school. So binary became like a part of like my curriculum. Other people did
Yeah.
not. So of course they didn't. But I was just like yelling at people. I'm like, you're such a fucking idiot. How do you not know this? It's so basic. But
Mm.
yeah, this was a very, very fun, very intense puzzle that had a lot of outside elements.
Yeah.
I think it was I think what it actually was everyone got different parts of a code, right? And then that code made an image that overlaid, and it was that image that was just on screen, except it was just like a pixel. Every pixel was one person's code, and they had to somehow figure it out together, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
That shit was crazy.
I remember Dado
Yeah.
doing it. That was the thing. I just remember him like spending forever to figure it out.
Did he
And
solve that at like 4 in the morning one day?
I don't even remember, but yeah, it was something crazy.
I
I,
feel
I
I
just all I remember is it took him forever, and he figured it out. And like the whole community was trying to help him, and it was like a flood of information that sent people down rabbit holes that meant nothing. And then he finally figured it out, and it was like, yes, Outbreak Prime. But yeah, what in the world? And then like just figuring out how to do it was
mhm,
the one thing, but then to go do it was a whole nother
mhm,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a lot to get through today, so maybe we should try to get back on
Yeah,
track.
let's
Do you
yeah,
want to
sorry.
do the lore card this week?
Yes, of course.
So, brought to you from
Yeah.
Destiny Armory Defined. This week's lore card. I'm Greasy Luck.
Yeah. So, um, this was kind of funny because I had no idea about Greasy Luck. Like I don't live near any coastal areas. I don't know, ye old tale of boats and pirates and seafaring individuals or maritime folklore. I don't
You
know
know, you're
much
saying
about.
you had no idea about Greasy Luck? I didn't
I had
even
no
know this
idea.
weapon was in the game.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah.
I have
So that's a
not
whole
seen
nother
this.
thing. Um, so Greasy Luck, if you look at it, first off, you can see it's like a spear gun, right?
Hmm.
All right. So what the heck does that mean? So it's a Greasy Luck. So I was looking at it and I was like, on the face of it, I knew, okay, well that's a drifter thing, right? It's Greasy Luck. You would associate that with the drifter as being a greasy dude. Um, but then I
Yep.
dived into it and I was like, wait a minute, there's a little bit more to this. So like I looked at the flavor text and I just thought, oh, okay, that's just something, but nothing. The flavor text is pretty cool though, and I'll bring it up at the end. But the flavor text says "death to the living, long life to the killers," which is pretty cool. It's like a
Hmm.
pretty cool thing to say. Uh, so I was like, well, what's the significance of Greasy Luck? And I looked it up and I found a bunch of crap that just had nothing to do with it. But then on the far corners of the internet, I discovered an entire new thing. So greasy luck is an expression that's rooted in fishing and whaling. Within maritime folklore, the concept emerged as a way to describe both good and bad fortune while hunting with spears and harpoons to capture whales for their valuable oil.
Yep.
That's pretty horrific. We live in a time where, that like we don't kill whales anymore. Like it's illegal unless you're a part of an indigenous tribe that still is allowed to kill one every year up in the north. Stuff like that. But like globally, we decided as a people that it's bad. Don't kill whales anymore, and
Hmm.
so we try to enforce that and keep doing it. I mean, people still do it, which is horrible. But this was a very important thing for peoples way back in the day because their livelihood, their expeditions all revolved around, just this was life back in the day. So prefacing what we know now, let's just preface that. But go back to when people were fishing. They didn't know this was bad back then. They just thought this is how we do it. This is how we're going to survive. So in the harsh and dangerous conditions out at sea, fishermen and whalers heavily relied on luck, for a successful expedition. Um, they obviously faced numerous challenges, including adverse weather conditions, treacherous waves, and unpredictable marine creatures.
Hmm.
So the concept of greasy luck emerged as a way to describe both good and bad fortune in their endeavors. The term greasy luck is most commonly associated with whaling, which was once a booming industry. Whalers would venture out into the vast ocean for months, hunting and capturing whales for their valuable oil. Whaling ships were not only filled with experienced sailors, but also a fair share of superstitions and folklore. And so, you've heard of like these songs that were sung by fishermen or, maritime folklore that stories would be passed down and stuff like that. So, this is rooted in that. But one particular belief was that rubbing oil from a hunted or captured whale on one's body or clothes would bring good fortune.
Oh,
It
that
was a
is
belief. It was
crazy.
I know. It was believed to appease the spirits of the sea and increase the chances of a successful catch. So like you would rub this whale oil all over your body and it'd go out and then that was like good luck to catch a whale. So you can imagine, I mean, whales are massive and the amount of oil that they could get from I mean, they used oil for everything from these whales. Not only that, they used their flesh and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
so whalers who had experienced luck and returned home with abundance of this whale oil began to refer to their prosperous trips as having greasy luck. Conversely, voyages that were less fruitful and yielded less oil were described as having dry luck.
Hmm.
Of course, they used these spears and harpoons to hunt with, and so if you look at the glaive, it's a spear. It's a spear gun. It has a very unique aesthetic to it. It looks much like a modern day diver's spear gun with the bright colors, and then you see the barbed tip at the end. So a harpoon um, is a primitive weapon that has evolved over the years. This harpoon was very critical in hunting whales. If you've read Moby Dick or you know about Moby Dick, this is the weapon that what was his name? Uh, the main
Ahab.
character, yeah, Ahab would use, or like this was his, when he went out for the white whale, right? The
Hmm.
whole story is like the white whale, and he finally catches up to it. Blah blah blah. So there's a lot of like stories just embedded in these maritime folklores, and one of the most known was Moby Dick. But the harpoon was like the tool. That was the main tool for catching a whale, and it's a unique weapon, but also it was utilized by various cultures throughout history. I mean, it goes
Hmm.
way back, so it can be traced back to early human societies, particularly those that relied on fishing and hunting, and hunting marine creatures for sustenance. I mean, it wasn't only used for whales; it was obviously used for lots of big fish, stuff like that. But the exact origin of the harpoon is really difficult to determine because of its ancient roots. So, what I like to imagine is just people on ships out in the vast ocean trading secrets or learning tools from one another, not really having any kind of boundaries or borders or like tribes and whatnot to really keep them from one another. Because if you're a sailor or a fisherman, and you encounter someone out on the ocean, you either are in competition with them, or they're your ally, right? And so you
Hmm.
learn things, and so that's really kind of cool because if you think about that, that's like it's like a boundless society that was living on the ocean, and these things were learned and traded down from generation to generation. So the earliest harpoons were made likely from natural materials like wood, bone, or sharpened stone. They consisted of a shaft or a handle with a sharp pointed tip, often barbed or notched to prevent the prey from escaping. Some harpoons featured a line or a rope so that they could allow the hunters to secure the catch and prevent it from escaping into the depths of the water. Harpoon technology evolved over time as humans discovered ways to improve its effectiveness. But in the context of fishing, the origins of Greasy Luck are a little bit slightly different. So now fishermen would refer to their luck as either greasy or good. So like greasy good or dry bad, right? And
Hmm.
so over time, the expression greasy luck has become a part of this maritime lingo in folklore, and it's often used to describe the good and bad fortune. Uh, but today, with this phrase, it's not only used by fishing and whaling, but it's also used by people in various walks of life. It's even taken on a broader meaning and symbolizes the unpredictability and luck and fortune in general. Uh, I never heard it. I never knew about it. I didn't know this was a thing, but evidently it is. And I
I mean,
found
even living
pockets
on the
of
coast, I've never heard this before.
right. And so, like, I found pockets of people just in weird industries using the word greasy luck, and like it took on a whole new meaning, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of like meme culture.
Yeah.
It just evolves like the harpoon did. But here's where the flavor text really twists. Is It was really cool. So a long time ago, somebody found some primitive scrimshaw being like an artifact of a bygone era where people would make like art, crafts, blah blah blah, right? So scrimshaw is considered to be like an art or a craft that was taken from like who knows where, but it's more of like a primitive type of thing. And so there's a scrimshaw, and it's called tooth of a sperm whale. And so it's this big tooth of a sperm whale, and on the side of this sperm whale tooth is written, and this is a very famous scrimshaw that has been uncovered, an artifact that's in a museum now. And like, I didn't know about it, but apparently it's very popular, very known, and people from all walks of life have taken inspiration from it and written uh, books and stories and whatever from this. However, here's what it says on the side of this whale tooth: death to the living, long life to the killers,
Huh.
success to the sailors' wives, and greasy luck to the whalers. So that flavor text is on this weapon: death to the living, long life to the killers. And evidently, this was kind of like a saying that was traded by fishermen. You know, it was like, you know, when you go out in the ocean, hope you have good luck. And so, like, this is how they would say it to one another. You know, they would just quickly say this like little poem to one
Mhm.
another. And so it's scrimshawed on this artifact, and it says, death to the living, long life to the killers, success to the sailors' wives, and greasy luck to the whalers.
That's
Anyway,
cool.
yeah, it was very cool. It was really neat to discover. I really like items like this that kind of unlock something that you wouldn't, on the face of it, like you look at that and you go, what the hell's that? I don't know. That doesn't mean nothing, you know?
Yeah. It makes
But
you
it
wonder,
unlocks
like,
this
where
whole.
Bungie gets their knowledge from. Like, who's coming up with this crap? Because they come up with some of the most obscure stuff for their like inspiration.
So, you know, being a writer, you kind of have to be somewhat of a polymath. You have to know a lot of stuff, and you get inspirations from all walks of life. And writers, and like this Luck, Greasy Luck, saying even that little scrimshaw that's appeared in several writings and stories. You know,
Huh.
probably not the most known writers in the world, but there's lots of, you know, references to this thing in writings. And so I would imagine, like, you know, one of those really cool writers over at Bungie stumbled upon this, or was like, "Hey, I'm going to put this in the game," you know?
Yeah, they were probably just waiting for it. They were like, "Oh, this is it.
Yeah,
This is my
because on the
chance."
face of it, like maybe they heard it from somebody they knew that was a
Yeah,
maritime person or whatever, or maybe they were at a bar one time and they saw, you know, it was like a nautical themed bar. Who knows? You know, inspiration is everywhere. Maybe it was at a
absolutely.
tattoo shop.
That's an
All them
interesting
sailors
tattoo.
getting tattoos.
Uh, awesome. So
Yep.
in our final week, week 6 of Season of the Deep, I took notes. I'll run through all the cool stuff that happened. So the final story beat, it opens up with a hologram from Saladin. He briefs us about Zivu's attack on Asa, how he's sending his iron, excuse me, Iron War Beast. We go into the mission Barotrauma, where they're trying to take Asa, and we stop it. Hooray! Uh,
Yeah.
at the end, we get a cutscene where Zivu speaks through Sloane and actually takes control of her. So Sloane has been battling this Taken infestation put on her by Zivu, and Asa's been helping with that. At least that's the most obvious play. It kind of felt like earlier on in the season they were trying to say that Asa was involved with Sloane's taking. Do you recall that?
I do. But I don't know where that came from
Yeah.
specifically.
It was just like when Drifter was like, "Oh, look what happened to you," and she's like, "No, I needed to do this." Something with
Yeah.
Asa, and some of the word choices in this lore book that we're gonna cover today makes me wonder what Asa truly is, because I'm not sure if that was exactly covered either. Um,
Hmm.
and so in the cutscene, Zivu starts speaking through Sloane, and she takes over, and she lifts her sword to. I wrote Saladin's throat, but I think it might have been Zavala's. Um, in any case, they say we're with you all the way, and it's kind of settled. And then Asa tells us through Sloane that Savathun is the one that we need to talk to figure out how to get through the portal. As in week 5, we were like kind of teased that Asa knows how to get in, and Asa's like, I don't actually know how to get in, but Savathun does.
Yeah. What?
Which is making me,
Uh,
it's making me a little
question.
suspicious of Asa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel like there was a few things half said in earlier on, like I just said about Asa being involved with the taking and how Asa can speak more and more through Sloane. And it's like, how much of Sloane are we
Right.
actually seeing? Like, could
How
this,
much of Asa is even real? Like, it's the whole
and
what is real?
well, I'm sure Asa's real. But so think
Yeah.
back to Witch Queen when we had those truth and lies, and it was like
Hmm.
Savathun said that she has control over when the planets return. So if Savathun had planted a worm under her influence on Titan, and Titan gets taken and Sloane stays, and somehow there's still communication between Savathun and the worm during the period uh before Witch Queen and
Right.
beyond between Beyond Light and Witch Queen. And Asa is communicating back with Savathun, like, I got her. Like, get that planet back. I got her, you know? And so Savathun puts into motion bringing back Titan. Um, obviously, we took her out in Witch Queen, so maybe it wasn't just Savathun. Maybe Imaru was briefed on the plan to be like, and do this at this point, you know? And she really, like, keyed it all out. Because then we have Asa basically telling us, like, hey, bring Savathun back. And
Yeah,
it's a
that's really interesting because, like, I, just think about like the whole Titan, um, when being on Titan and the missions that we ran there, and then not really knowing what was the whole motive of Savathun's influence in
yeah.
Titan in the first place, right?
Because that's
Yeah,
her hive were on Titan. Savathun's
yeah,
song was on
new
Titan. Like
brood,
now it's
yeah,
back and we're just okay with it. It's back
yeah,
and an entity
exactly.
that's been there the whole time is like, hey, it'd be really
Hmm.
cool if you let Imaru revive Savathun. And
That's funny.
I'm not the only one that's a little suspicious about it. So after the cutscene, we go and we interrupt the conversation of
Yeah.
our 3 Titan dads talk about bringing Savathun back. Saladin is very mad, and Saint has obvious trauma from what Savathun did to Osiris. Eris and Ikora know a way to keep Savathun under control, which is how interesting. Saladin leaves angry. Keitel won't be happy. He says Saint pleads not to do this again, and that Osiris will hear of this. And Zavala says, this is a full quote, there's a long night ahead of us. Let us be the beacons others need to follow. At least we will make it through this. Um, so it feels like a mistake, right? It feels like everyone's
Yeah.
saying, this is a mistake. Don't do this. This is a mistake. Uh, what do you think Ikora and Eris's there's a way to control Savathun is? Because I have an idea, and it's not exactly control her. It's more of a contingency plan.
I have no idea. I couldn't even imagine. Because, well, the only thing that my mind can go to is when Eris touches the veil, in her Ahamkara bone.
You
Uh,
mean the veiled
more
statue, not the
the veil,
veil?
yeah, the veiled statue, yeah, not the veil, the veiled statue, and then she, senses the thing in
Hmm.
Beyond Light, and they're
Well, that's
in
how she
her.
got stasis and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like that's the only thing I can think of is like how does she have any kind of so the veil and the
Hmm.
veil statues like there's some kind of connection with uh the calcification of things that the witness we learned so back up we learned in the cutscene that the people that make the witness the collective people race that make the witness
Hmm.
learn to calcify things and slice things away. That's why there's so much architecture with sliced things and things that look like they're cast in stone, almost like Medusa stared at it or whatever. Like
Hmm.
it
It's
looks like
it's like a person in stone, except he's missing his left arm and his right leg, and it's like, why is he missing these
yeah.
things?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously there's an aesthetic to it. So a lot of that's just probably just written into the beauty of the background. And,
Hmm.
they love to paint beautiful skyboxes and whatnot. And so, like, a lot of it, just take it with a grain of salt. However, I think they're trying to say something, with that whole like ability. Like we saw him snap his fingers and then, read
Oh
seven
yeah.
slices up. Yeah. And so everybody's, like the things are sliced in space and whatnot. And so, but I think the calcified, that's a key word they're trying to use. And
Hmm.
maybe there's some sort of back channel that Eris knows about through the calcification of uh, that veiled statue. Like maybe there's something to that. And maybe that's the only thing I can think of. But we know in story wise that she has a Hankara bone and she wished to get out of the freaking pit of Rhoda, and that's how she survived. And so, like, but we also know that Eris once said in flavor text, "This is not my final shape," and she has showed me that. So,
Oh
what the hell
yeah.
does that mean? So like,
That's another interesting
there's
thing.
there's a lot of little things that tie into that.
Yeah.
Uh, but Ikora of all people, she would probably know a lot about a lot of the different mysteries and just wouldn't share that information. However, Eris is very important to Ikora because she's a part of the hidden.
Hmm. So the way I think that they might be able to control her is if they were able to find Imaru and somehow convince him to be like, we're gonna put you in this cage, the cage that like the Praxic Order uses that like keeps the ghost from escaping.
Oh
We're gonna put you
yeah,
in this cage. We're gonna let you revive Savathun, and we're gonna keep you in this cage. And kind of like Savathun does anything, you're getting it.
snuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then we'll deal with her again. We'll do that again, and then she'll be gone forever. Uh, you know.
Yeah, because isn't there a story in D1 where a hive wizard was captured and the same kind of thing happened where we we
I don't
use
recall.
something. God dang it. I wish I had it queued up. Anyway, there was a moment back in D1 where we captured a hive wizard and we basically did something similar where we kept it from being able to leave and die and resurrect or use any kind of tithing to that worm, and we kept
Hmm.
it in like a suspended life death moment to try to figure out what to do about the hive at the particular time. I don't remember what was the point of it, but we did something. So we have the capacity and the ability to do something to the hive in a way to keep them in suspended uh, life and
Hmm.
death. So maybe that's like what you're saying. We got our Imaru, and we could, put him in a cage,
Yeah.
keep Savathun in a suspended way, like a hive wizard, and then tell us what we need to know,
Yeah.
or
No,
else.
that makes sense. So I guess time will tell. I imagine this is gonna
Okay.
happen next season. We don't know anything about next season yet. So I imagine that's when it will play out. After the post cutscene conversation, we have another holo projector with Sloane, where she basically says how we won, hooray! And she says, "This is a quote: I thought I needed a mission to drown out the noise. Sloane is mad. Better place is Sloane is now in a better place psychologically." And Asa is going into hibernation, and Sloane says she'll watch over her. And then
Right.
after we just spoke to her on the hologram, we now have a radio call with her where she apologizes for attacking Zavala. So it was Zavala, not Saladin. Or maybe it was Saladin, and then I wrote Zavala the second time. In any case, one of them is wrong. But it was under Zivu's influence, so he forgives her. Sloane didn't expect to ever return home after Titan was taken, and that's why she accepted what she did. Zavala, what she did being like the whole taken thing. Zavala talks about Safi and Hakim, his wife and son, and they also both talk about Renapier's drunken noodle, which
Yeah,
Zavala
that's
is
a great
like,
one.
yeah, when you come back, we're gonna go there, and she's like, oh my god, if Renapier's drunken noodle wasn't still in the city, there wouldn't be any point of ever coming back. So it ends on a nice little lighthearted note for the final story beats.
Yeah, that was a cool one because it was kind of like you knew they were talking about each other, and he was just like, basically, this was the invitation to go out to dinner or lunch one day at the Drunken Noodle, and
Yeah,
kind of
like
lament or whatever,
you're
get
not allowed to
better.
stay away from the city, Sloan. You're still a part of
Yeah,
us. Like no matter what
yeah,
you got going on. And
yeah.
we've proven, hopefully it's not exclusive to Awoken because that would be unfortunate, but we've proven that you can remove Taken Blight from people.
Oh
So,
yeah, that's interesting.
and so throughout the season, like every season, every week we got a lore entry. And so 6 weeks, 6 entries. We got the lore book Purpose. And so I really like this lore book because I think during Witch Queen, when they were doing it, they had a bad habit of the lore book just retelling the mission that you just did. So it's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, that's kind
what's
of
the point of
annoying.
this lore book? Whereas
Yeah,
as this gives you like the surrounding context to what happened. Um so unless there's anything else that you want to say about week 6.
no, that was good.
Okay. And if we have time at the end, I have one thing that I have written on my phone that I want to go through, which I already shared with you uh, a few days ago about the witness. Um,
Yeah,
so the lore book is called Purpose. The first entry is debriefing. Sloan returns from the Otherwhere, which is what I'm calling where the planets go because we don't have a name for it. And Zavala debriefs her on everything that's happened. And she struggles being left behind on so many big moments. Uh,
yeah,
so while she was in the Otherwhere, Sao Shane's internal chronometer had glitched out shortly after Titan disappeared and took them with it. And so I wanted to ask you, stasis already is kind of a like time-based subclass, but could there be another could this play a part in the Vex's ability of time travel in the first place? Maybe that's why they're so limited into like what they can do. So like obviously taking the planets was a power that the witness and thus the darkness has, and if Sao Shane's chronometer glitched out shortly after it was taken, um, what does that mean? Does that mean like is it thought and consciousness control? Like we've talked about how stasis was kind of originally supposed to be like time based, where
yeah,
you're frozen in time. This is kind of punny, I guess. And maybe that's why
yeah,
they went away with it. And they were like, let's
yeah,
not do it like that. But maybe they would want a similar time based power. And it was just making me
yeah,
think, like, why haven't the Vex won? Why have they ever lost? And oh, because we're paracausal. That's a pretty fucking lame reason, right? Like, there
yeah,
has to be more
yeah.
to it.
That's been like the catch-all thing though for everything since D1 is
Yeah.
our paracausal ability allows us to circumvent the threats in our surrounding solar system slash universe, enemy, darkness, yada yada yada. It's like the whole premise and backbone of the Guardian's existence is the fact that we have this ultimate tie to something that we can't defeat without defeating ourselves because just like Ulantan says,
Hmm.
one can't exist without the other because they both come from the same place. So to get rid of one, you get rid of the other. Like
Hmm.
ultimately, no matter what, this is what's going to happen. And the only way to survive is to keep that battle going, right? And
Yeah.
so like one of the things we learned about Zivu Wrath is that she loves the fact that war, like the future war cult believed, the war is inevitable. It has to happen because without it, there is no survival, there's no existence. And just like the winnower and the gardener keep saying or said back in the day, in the stories,
Hmm.
uh, it without or the gardener in it, yeah. So without this constant conflict in the universe, existence is nothing, right?
Hmm.
But I have this sneaky suspicion that uh, somehow in this like universe that we're all in, um, the Vex. So the Vex are there, and they've been there for who knows how long. They were brought into this whole scenario. But the Vex seem to be tied to a lot of dumb stuff, one way or another. Like the whole fact that the Exos, exist was,
Yeah,
like,
that was a
yeah,
big one.
a frosty Vex luge into the mouths of, Clovis Bray's machine that
Uh-huh.
created the consciousnesses. Uh-huh. So there's this consciousness thing, there's this strand thing, and then there's this like entropy stasis thing. And so like all of these things are coming from these paracausal forces, and we know the Vex are another paracausal enemy race. What is their ability? So their ability is
Well, I
to
mean,
be able to
they're not
circumvent.
supposed to be paracausal, right? They're like fourth dimensional.
Yeah, that's a good way to explain it. Like their fourth dimension is removed from the boundaries of our fundamental forces in this environment, right?
Yeah.
But paracausal abilities allow us to circumvent those fundamental forces of our universe,
Yeah.
and so that's like how we keep saying, well, the reason why we have powers or the reason why we can survive is because of this paracausal ability. But what if it was something a little bit more simple? What if it was something that was more tied or more aligned to how the Vex manipulate our
Hmm.
universe? And we learn some way that, oh my God, this sucks. We just basically are byproducts of the same thing the Vex uses.
Yeah. I I feel like, and I wonder if you agree. I feel like even though we had Crotazan, House of Wolves, Taken King, Wrath of the Machine, even though we had all those big battles against other enemy races, I feel like in D1, the Vex were always pitched as like, we don't stand a chance against them though. And then
Yeah, you're right.
in D2, it became heavily focused on the Hive. And it was just
Right.
like, you know, I know it started with the Red War, but it was like, all right, well, Oryx is dead, but Savathun. It kept
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
knocking on, ringing that bell of Savathun is coming, Savathun is coming. Also, the darkness, Savathun is coming, Savathun is coming.
Yeah. Yeah. When you
Uh,
paint it like that, it really.
yeah, and it's just like it almost feels like they because in the first Destiny 2 DLC was the Curse of Osiris, and we fight
Yeah.
Panoptes, and Panoptes is supposed to be this huge threat and everything, and we take him out pretty easily. But then after we defeat him, we have a lore entry that basically says, "And he's not dead," and it's like, so then what did we do? It's and it they
Yeah, and so that's the mystery, and that's the thing that leaves my mind open to this possibility that somewhere in an alternate universe, somewhere something's happening that we just, we're on the right path. We're locked into our destiny, right?
Mhm.
We're controlling our fate. We're trying to manipulate and control our fate on this rail that we've been forced to run down. Yet the only thing that we can use as a way to just keep from falling apart is this uh, somehow we're able to circumvent these like alternate reality slash timeline slash whatever bad outcome happened, like the stranger, the freaking exo stranger, right? The
Mhm.
whole story of the exo stranger was, hey, you're like, I'm here because you're on the right path, and this is probably going to be the one we need to be on. So let me give you these little tools along the way to butterfly effect your way to
Yeah.
the outcome we need to survive.
and she puts you on this like direct path against the Vex. And obviously it was for the Black Heart because the
Yeah,
formation of the Black Heart, which is also apparently a attempt to recreate the Veil, was such a dangerous thing to exist. Completely, I get it. You know, that makes sense.
yeah,
I understand it. However, then in D2, when she does return, she completely pivots and is all about like stasis and understanding stasis and the pyramids. And if she did everything she did in the dark future, you think that she'd be like, okay, now let me tell you about the witness. Here's what we
yeah,
know. And that never happened. And it's like,
yeah,
so because in the one dark future we had, it felt like Eris was really just taking control, and the witness was completely hands off. The witness did not come in. The witness is like, "You do
yeah,
your thing. I'm gonna come in. I'm gonna find the veil, and I'm gonna final shape it." And
yeah.
so maybe Elsie never really had experience against the witness itself. Um,
Yeah, maybe, and
it's
then
hard to
that
say.
she learned. Yeah, it is hard to say. It's really hard to say. It's because those are the mysteries, and like none of this was apparent at the time. But if you unlock a future outcome that could potentially lead to your, keep you from your extinction event, blah blah blah, then you have to do whatever's necessary. And I like I think the Curse of Osiris and Osiris's fanatics and his little what were they called, little things that he wrote down, prophecies.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh,
I
the
think
parables of the offspring.
yeah, so all of that was written in a way to tell you, hey, the reason why you can't have all the information up front is because you're going to fuck up the future.
Yeah.
So I got to dole it out in little ways that make you stay on this path to success. And if I give you all the information right off the bat, you're going to take a left turn to Crazy Town. But if I give you a little bit at a time, it'll keep driving you forward to the ultimate goal, right? And so
And
maybe the Exo Stranger did kind of the same thing, and now she's at a
yeah.
point where like I don't know what to do now.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Osiris, of course, was using all that information for his own selfish needs, but that's fine.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
One last thing before we move on to the second entry, however, Elsie exists in a loop, right? And
Yeah,
so what if that is the other that's another darkness power that she has? She had stasis. What if she never learned how to wield Strand because it was all about like going with the flow and everything, and she was too rigid, kind of like Osiris
yeah,
was during the Lightfall campaign, too rigid to actually wield it. But what if there was a third one that was maybe it was if it's like thought and consciousness, what if the third one is about ambition? And Elsie's ambition was to save Anna. And every time Anna died, loop resets, loop resets, loop resets, loop resets, because she subconsciously is using this
to save
third
Anna.
darkness power to try to
Yeah,
fix it, to try to fix it, to try to fix it. And maybe that's how the Vex work, where Panoptes had their ambition, and then we kill Panoptes. Well, they loop reset, they come back, they come back and
yeah,
they're not now we're a divergent timeline from the Panoptes, but maybe the Vex found a way to jump across.
yeah. That's a good idea. And I think most people right now are very uh, attuned to the possibility of the Vex being a main source of conflict in the next season or
Yeah.
whatever.
You mean
So if
next
the
saga?
yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
saga.
I agree. Um,
Which brings us all the way back to the Ishtar Collective and the simulation and
yep.
everything that happened there and the
Finally we'll
lab
see
and
the
all that.
227 in Praedyth.
Oh my God, wouldn't that be awesome?
I've been dying for that. I was so sure it was gonna happen in Season of the Undying and fucking Shadowkeep. What was that,
Yeah,
4 years ago now? Oh my god. I've been waiting.
yeah,
In any case, entry number
yeah,
2 is called Theory. And in this entry, Ikora practices wielding Strand in the Veil containment chamber when Osiris arrives. She then theorizes how everything is connected, kind of like how we're doing right now.
Yeah,
It is crazy to me though that Ikora,
yeah,
right off like the first fucking sentence, Ikora pinches a thick and vibrant strand thread from the air and twists it between her fingers with ease. So, so she's got
yeah,
this. Like, okay,
yeah.
fucking
She's on
Ikora,
it.
what the hell? Um, and so in this entry, I marked a section to read, so I'll read this. It's the end of the entry. You taught me the value of a backup plan. Ikora gives him a stern look. Titan, Savathun's throne world, every place we found a Gregor. I haven't found the exact threads yet, but pull one and they all seem to spin back to Neomuna, to the Veil. You're getting ahead of yourself, following some of my less favorable tendencies. Nimbus says we must flow to understand Strand. Perhaps it is the same with the Veil. Osiris moves beside Ikora and reaches up, palm parallel to the threads drawn taut from Ikora's braid of Strand. Soul remembered Titan in a way. The Veil's signal spiked when Titan returned from memory to reality, when the rhythm of the solar system had been restored to order. Osiris drops his hands and looks to Ikora. Perhaps we must simply find that rhythm before we were able to interpret the beats within it. And once we do, then we should be able to reverse that process. She replies. Ikora releases the thread and tracks the rippling points of connection that travel onward, along the fabric like strands of existence, to the walls, to the containment enclosure. We're too late in the game for something to mean nothing. It has to connect. Ikora sighs, then turns to Osiris. Your flair for educating others is returning, though I bet some would say you never lost it, she smiles. Osiris smirks. Come and walk with me. We'll discuss this unifying theory of yours. So we've been talking about
Yeah,
Egregor for like 2 years now, and it feels
yeah,
like we're never getting the fucking answer, but everything is tied in with the Egregor
right.
or
Well,
Egregor.
egregore, yeah. It's funny because like depending on what region you're in, it's egregore or egregore. But
Oh, really?
what yeah. And what I don't okay, so there's so much to unpack and I don't want to like go down the rabbit holes and just derail the whole show. But just real
I do
quick,
want to
just to
finish the
kind of
book.
just real quick, I just want to point out that that little theory thing right there written, um, our soul system, we're confined to what's in our director when we're playing the game, and our soul
Hmm.
system is everything that's in the game. And so obviously things are removed by Bungie for content reasons, storage reasons, whatever, and then brought back at a later date, or revamp reasons, and then it's brought back because you can't have something you're working on in the game because people will just fall off a cliff trying to look
Yeah.
for it. Anyway, uh, but it's kind of interesting to play with this idea that our soul system and everything in our reality is almost like it's in its own pocket.
Hmm.
And the fact that we have memories is because we're remembering when our soul system wasn't in that pocket that we're in right now. And like people were a part of, a timeline that is still actually going, but our whole existence right now has been pocketed by taking it and removing it from that timeline or that alternate universe, and we're in this reality right now, we're in this universe, but it has been segmented, separated away from the other timelines, the other potential outcomes, the other uh, multiverses, whatever you want to call it, that and we're forced to deal with what we have. And so every now and then, Titan can just disappear, but where does it go, right? And when it
Yeah.
comes back, maybe the reason why it disappears is because it's gone on to that failed timeline until it comes back and we save it again or whatever, and these things are happening, and like things are popping in and out of existence because you can't have it all at once. But at the same time, like, you know it is necessary, and it's so like there's this constant battle for keeping our soul system in this pocket.
You know,
It's
that's
like
that's
holding a button.
that's a really
Yeah,
interesting point. Sloan
yeah,
should have had a ship. When Titan disappeared, hop off Titan for a little bit, see what's up,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's really stupid to do.
No, and
Like,
I mean, but
but
maybe like
if she
of
did
all,
that and then Titan returned, it returns without her.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I mean.
Like
Maybe that'd
okay,
be stupid to do.
well, and so what I'm saying is like when you brought up the egregore is this power, and you know, and it has its own meaning, but it's very much tied to like this etheric, angelic, spirit level of
Hmm.
reality that we can't attain, like because we're not conscious of it, because we don't have whatever fabric, we can't manipulate or be in tune with it because we don't have the connecting fibrous fabric of the universe to attune our own vibrations to the level of the spirit world, right? This
Hmm.
sounds very hippie, but um, imagine being of a certain consciousness or ascending to a certain mental level that allows you to tune into the spirit world, right? People love this stuff, you know, from like uh, whatever, you know, just whatever. Like esoterics love this stuff. But the idea that you can attune your own mental consciousness to vibrate on a spirit level, and now you can see what nobody can see. You can see ghosts walking around. You can see nightmares walking around. You can see this whole spirit world that is a part of your universe, but removed, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so the egregore is a means for our guardian to attune ourselves to that level, and uh, and just like the glycon ship when it disappeared and then came back all messed up.
So then maybe the planets aren't gone because their gravity is the same. Maybe they're not actually gone. Maybe they're like in the upside down.
Exactly, exactly. And so that upside down is where everything is messed up and failed. And
Yeah.
this pocket that our soul system exists in has been removed from that horrible outcome that exists on the other side. And we're trying to prevent that we're trying to prevent that fate and destiny. And so we're
Hmm.
trying to rewrite it and make our own fate and destiny, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And so the way to do that is remove ourselves. But when we early on, when the traveler pushed back the darkness, the witness, whatever, uh, that pocket of our universe was created, and now with that, all memory of everything else goes with it too. You know, it's like hitting a reset button. It's like Control Alt Delete reboot, and so now we're
Hmm.
in this new environment, and we're picking up the pieces and learning about it along the way. And every time we dip out of it, we're like, "Oh crap, that's bad. That was a bad idea. Come back."
Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
so
anyway,
entry 3 is called Legacy, and in Legacy, Anna sits with Archie, remembering Rasputin fondly, not as the tyrant, but as the person who just wanted to keep people safe. And for those who don't know, Archie is the dog that Rasputin created the Good Boy Protocol for.
yeah, you
And
can pet him.
yeah, yeah, so you can pet him. And so for here, there's a section here. And yet, sitting here in the shadow of his sacrifice, Anna finds that she wants to remember him by not one thing built for war, a canine AI created for no other purpose than companionship, one that has made a home for itself in the tower, greeting everyone he meets on his daily walks. In the end, Rasputin's legacy was not the war he waged, but the lives he sought to protect. The notion brings a smile to Anna's lips. This distinguished him from Zebra Wrath, and Anna hopes that Sloane can realize the same holds true for her. Because
Yeah,
as we said last show and this show, Sloane felt like she needed the mission, she needed the fight, she needed these things. And Zivu, as we'll see at the end, the final entry in this book, is just so fixated on war.
yeah,
And so,
yeah.
entry 4, unless you have something to say about Archie.
No, that's perfect.
Entry 4 here, Eris suggests Drifter to be the one to console Sloane after her time away because Sloane is dealing with a lot. And so, right at the start here, I'm just going to read this paragraph. Eris let her eyes wander over the interior of the derelict, wondering if Drifter had hastily tidied it before her arrival. Unprecedented, but he could still surprise her. They sat together as they always did when she came to speak to him face to face. There's been a movement of the Eris Drifter romance.
Yeah, the ship.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's not that I don't see it, it's that I just still see all the lines that they say about Drifter having feelings for Orin. So it's like, is this a love triangle thing? What's happening here?
I mean, what isn't a love triangle thing? I mean, like
Yeah.
Chioma and freaking Cade and
Well, I mean, I
Anna and
guess.
right. I know. And like Mara and
Yeah.
Shax and what's her
No, but
name?
that one was not a love triangle though. Shax was just great
I
friends with
know, but I'm just
Shiraido.
saying
But
like
people like to
I
say
know.
it.
And I
Yeah.
know, but like that's what people like to do. Like we even now have an explanation for it, but people are still like, "Oh, and the helmet stayed on," you know.
Yeah.
But like we know that he just showed up there to read the Tempest to her because she was, and he was crying about it because
Yeah.
the helmet stays on because he didn't want anybody to see how emotional he was for
Yeah.
having to read this to Mara, who is lamenting a lost lover, and
Yeah.
it connected to Shax's too. I want to know more about Shax.
It
But
we
anyway,
haven't gotten anything about him. It's such
nothing, man. That
a
dude is a
blank spot.
closed book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Saladin's helmet came off
I
in Rise of
imagine
Iron. Why the fuck isn't Shax's helmet coming off? And even if it's not coming off,
because
more. He was a goddamn warlord, and that's all we know about him. He was a warlord
he
once.
still is a warlord.
He
He
still
still
is a
is.
warlord,
He
as he
considers himself.
proclaims.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So then in the end of this entry here, I have a
Do
section
not be
marked.
concerned with the amount of homes I have. Sorry,
Uh,
that came up earlier in the week.
Drifter fell quiet, looking down. She could hear his breath and see the stained shiver of his fingers clutched where he clutched the coin. Eris reached out and placed a hand on his arm. He was tense to trembling, but her touch was light, quiet, comforting. He placed his hand over her own. You know, some days I still wake up scared, Drifter said softly, even when I can't remember my dreams. That is what it is to survive. There was a great gentleness to Eris's voice. He nodded, then looked up and met her gaze. Hey, Drifter said, you find that joy yet? Soon, Eris answered. Joy is built, but I have taken the first step. Drifter withdrew his hand. After a moment, she did too. Eris stood, and Drifter's eyes followed her. Consider my consider my counsel, Germaine. She knew he would. Drifter let the silence linger. That's not my name, he said at last. That is what you let them call you. It was a small link to his past, a link to a life he had picked for himself. He nodded slowly, holding her gaze. He would let her call him that too. And so the them that calls him Germaine is Orin. So Eris is like,
Yeah,
you let Orin call you Germaine. I'm calling you Germaine too.
yeah. So like the cool thing about this to unpack is that Eris is saying, at some point, Drifter, you've got to open up and be a part of this alliance because you're no matter what you think of yourself, you are worthy of being a part of this family, and you've been here long enough to just be a part of it. So you need to embrace this, and one way to do that is to go counsel Sloan because it's necessary not for just for Sloan, but for also your personal growth. And the
Mm-hmm.
two of you having a meeting of the minds can help each other overcome their own your own insecurities and internal battles that you're having because the drifter feels out of place obviously
Yeah.
he feels like but he does that to
Uh,
that what
you cut out there,
oh I'm
mid
sorry
sentence, and then you came back with like that at the end.
oh no I'm sorry
No, it's fine. It's fine. Um, so should we just go to the next entry?
yeah
All right. So entry number 5 is expectation. In this entry, Ikora and Zavala talk about the origins of the witness, and Zavala draws parallels to and speaks ill of the traveler. So this entry comes alongside the witness origins cutscene, and so we're not the only ones that learn about it. Everyone learns about it, and specifically, Zavala is very upset about it. Um, So here's a segment from the century. Zavala is silent. He looks up from the datapad to Ikora, then sighs and slowly rises from his seat. Ikora follows him with her eyes, watching him move to the window where he would gaze out at the traveler in the past. Now a fleet of allied vessels struggle to fill that void. Were they really that unified? Zavala asks, looking at Ikora's faint reflection. Who? The witness's people. Zavala stares past Ikora's reflection to the city. Were they truly of one mind, united in the desire to become this thing? Or were they forced, compelled into action by the guidance of a few? She can feel the doubt in his words, not in his wondering about the witness's origins, but in the vanguard, in what he sees as a parallel. Ikora steps to Zavala's side, briefly touching his elbow. We'd never become that, she says softly. Not in all of Elsie's journey through time, not in any hypothetical future. We stand together because we believe what we're doing is right, Zavala interjects. Looking Ikora in the eye, she sighs, turning to face the window. Her shoulders sag, and she is lost in the details of the cityscape. I don't know what I expected either, Zavala said, but you're right. It wasn't this. And so I really love this entry to come with that week because that was the week, or actually, it might have been the week before. I forgot exactly what week it was because I played them together. Where Drifter and Zavala had a conversation where Zavala was surprised at Drifter having faith in Orin. And Drifter said that he was surprised that Zavala, of all people, would have lost faith in the Traveler. And so
Yeah,
we're really seeing that Zavala has been on this like depressing, like, what's the point of all this? You've caused all this. Like everyone that has died is kind of because of the Traveler.
right. Yeah, he's feeling guilty and bad about all this stuff.
And you know,
That's
it's
interesting. That is interesting. I think that was a good soundbite though for the Drifter and Zavala because
yeah,
it
it
because
was.
it addressed that elephant. Yeah,
Yeah. Because it's kind of messed up to like look at it like that, but at some point you kind of have to. It's not the
yeah,
Traveler's fault that everyone died. It was running away, but it did kind of bring everything with it, and it kept doing it. It kept doing it to all these people. Like it's not like,
right.
oh, one day randomly I learned that all the civilizations I helped were being killed. It's like, no, I knew from day one I was getting chased.
Yeah, and I brought it here
Yeah.
to
Because that
to
used to be
you.
my defense, that the Traveler could have been unaware of the actions happening after it leaves a society. Because we had instances where it uplifted a society, and it's like, okay, bye now, and it would just
Yeah,
go on its merry way, you know.
yeah,
And then after the Traveler had left, oh, here come the Hive, here come the darkness, you know. So
yeah,
after the Traveler was already gone, they would arrive, and so it was like, how is the Traveler supposed to know that? But clearly it did because it was from the fucking beginning it was getting chased. Um,
I mean,
and
it's
then
it's in the grimoire.
yeah. And then so the final entry we have here is conviction. In this entry, Zivu Arath stabs a knight in the spine to call the witness on its cell phone, and they have a nice chat. This was this opens up so crazy because it
Yeah,
reads Zivu Arath's claw wraps around a hiltless, slender Vanta black blade impaled into the spine of a prostrated knight whose own sword clatters to the ground inches from its grip, defeated. That's one sentence. So that's how Zivu opens communication with the deep, with the witness, with the darkness, etc. The many names it mantles. So a couple excerpts from this entry here. Uh, when the witness responds, they resist. The witness's many voices cascade over each other. Like wounded prey, all tire in time. If they do not, Zivorath sees the hidden thrust of its question. She knows it doubts her, but does not understand why. No matter the outcome, they stand at the precipice of the final shape. The sword will decide and be forged stronger for it. It is beyond that now. She does not want to fall before the end. She is so close now. She saw her past failures as blood penance, paid for strength, notches where blades and light met her carapace were legends giving form. But it is not hers to decide, nor the witnesses. The logic is a perfect deterministic sequence of causality built into the experience of consciousness, conscious existence. None can usurp it. Struggle with the finite is eternal. To deny the blades is heresy. Her sister's word played in her thoughts, like fingertips plucking dissonant chords. The witness enters the solace of Zivu's mind, her inner throne, a salt flat sliver extending eternally into darkness. Armaments of all fashions sleep partially sheathed between the cracks of a battlefield where there is no place to run. And from its gaze, there is no place to run. They hold the worm. They pursue her knowledge. The words echo throughout the desolate realm. The final shape remains to be hewn, that I may wield it glorious against the sky. Not as you are, weakened by defeat. The echoes slither over her mind, but find little purchase. Laughter like screaming fear. Meager victories of no consequence, blurred battles lost within my greater war. No victory is of no consequence, they scheme. War is fed regardless, the sky can grant no passage. That time will soon come to an end. Show her your love, Zyro. She is alone again, her blade buried in spent ash. And so
Phew.
yeah, that was a lot to have like this conversation between the two. And specifically at the end here, the witness says, that time will soon come to an end. Show her your love, Zyro. So there's two possibilities of who the witness is talking about. Either the witness knows about the plan to bring back Savathun, or the witness is talking about the gardener. So it's either telling Zivorath, to go kill your sister because love is war, or go kill the gardener because love is war.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So which do you think the witness is saying? Is it saying the traveler or Savathun?
I think Savathun.
That's what I felt when I first read it as well.
Yeah, I think
War is
Savathun
fed
because
regardless. The sky
yeah,
can grant no passage. That time will soon come to an end. Show her your love. So the sky being the traveler, the sky
right.
can grant no passage. That time will soon come to an end. Show her your love. Rereading it, I'm starting to think it's talking about the traveler.
Well, see, here's how I interpreted it, and why I think it's the Savathun is because when he's saying the sky, what do you say? The sky gives no. What is it?
The sky can give. War is fed regardless. The sky can grant no passage.
Yeah, so I think he's saying war is fed because she tides from the act of war, and the
Mm-hmm.
sky grants no passage because he's talking, or she, Zyro,
Mm-hmm.
Zivu, is talking about Savathun's way of getting out by using the sky as a passage, via the ghost. So I think that's what she
Oh.
means. That's my
The
interpretation.
sky
Is
can
like
grant
you
no
think you can
passage.
use the sky to your advantage by getting away from the tide to the worm, but guess what? If I kill you, I get all of your shit, and
Well,
you
it
can't run.
because she says meager victories of no consequence, blurred battles lost within my greater war, and the witness says no victory is of no consequence. They
Yeah.
scheme. So
So they scheme being
they
Savathun.
yeah, they being Savathun. War is
Yeah.
fed regardless. The sky can grant no passage to Savathun.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. You're right.
Yep. Because the way Zivu Arath
Yeah,
sees everything like meager victories of no consequence, because she's diminishing all the successes that her sisters had
yeah,
had by
yeah.
saying that in all capitals.
Well,
And then she's
that's just
saying,
how
I'm a,
Zivu talks.
well, that too. Yeah, I know.
Always
She's like,
shouting.
Savathun, she's basically like, my sister Savathun sucks. I'm the badass. And then
Yeah,
she's like, whatever she did, she can't, I'm going to take it. Marsha, Marsha, Marsha.
man. For two beings that are like planning like the evisceration of the universe, you think they would
Yeah.
speak in more concrete terms instead of like fucking drug dealers on a tapped cell phone. They scheme. The sky can grant no passage. Show her your
Mhm.
love. Like no names. No names. Don't say who you're talking about.
Yeah. We have no names. No names.
Yeah. So
That's funny.
that was our seasonal lore book purpose.
Yeah.
And there we have it. I think that's going to be it for our show because I don't think I'd have enough time to go through the other thing I was going to bring up.
Well, I mean, you can just, I mean, you got 5 minutes.
5 minutes. I don't even think I can read this in 5 minutes.
Okay.
I can probably read it. Because yeah, I can because everyone here should know
Okay.
about the cutscene where
Yes.
how the witness was formed. The origin of the witness. So it's all about unveiling, right? The the
Yeah.
the uh the validity of unveiling has been thrown into question, and you kind of came to the defense of it where you were saying the winnower specifically was a thing that existed before the beginning of the universe, and that it stayed out of the universe, and the witness is trying to become that. And
Yes.
so over eons they grew to desire a purpose. They desired a winnower to shape the garden. The scholars discovered another entity, the veil, and they claimed it. They learned the darkness. At this point, they no longer saw the gardener and its light as a source of prosperity, but as a source of chaos. And in the darkness, they learned how to calcify this chaos, as we said before, into a
Yep.
final shape, eternal and perfected. So, what if the witness didn't just make up the unveiling to sway us? What if the unveiling is, in essence, the Bible of the civilization who became the witness? What if the witness came to us as a missionary to offer us salvation? And so,
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
I believe the civilization that would become the witness desires a winnower and is trying to embody that being by committing what would effectively be a holy war. Trim away the chaos, leave only strict and perfect order of the final shape in its place. And
Yeah.
where better to start that than with themselves? They I don't know what words can be used, but they mass removed themselves from the game and became the witness. They became a singular piece in the game instead of
Yeah.
thousands, millions, billions. We don't know how many there were.
Yeah. Well, I brought it up before a while back, like maybe a month or a month and some odd days ago,
Mm-hmm.
about how this whole thing is coming to a close with the saga of, the many that became the one versus the one that became the many. So,
Mm,
and what do I mean by that? I mean the witness is comprised of a race of whatever that it became this entity of one, and the race combined to become the witness as the winnower to mantle death, basically. And then
mm-hmm.
the traveler was fragmented into many ghosts, which
Mm-hmm.
resurrected special people that were chosen, or sacrificial people that wanted to propel goodness forward, or goodness, whatever, the light. And so the traveler became the many, the witness became the one from many, and they're
That's
coming to this point of clashing.
that's an interesting take on it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And so the
ultimately, oh, go on.
calcification is a cool power,
Mm-hmm.
because think about how he uses, or the witness uses, that terminology, a perfect final shape. The
Mm-hmm.
calcification of the universe is what they think of as basically just still utter nothingness.
Yeah. Devoid of chaos. Chaos is what you want to avoid.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is to calcify everything so that there's no
Yeah.
more chaos ever again. And
Yeah.
it's an extreme take, but like I understand where they're coming from with it. And that's why I think like unveil not like and I don't mean to say that unveiling word for word is the Bible of the people that became the witness, but it's the
Right.
philosophy of it put into
There you
words
go.
for us to read, because I don't know how a missionary actually works, but I imagine they don't just go there and say like, this is truth and you need to accept it as truth.
Well,
Like they try to,
it's like an evangelistic
yeah,
you know what is mission, just like you said, like missionaries, but what, like they're going out and saying, have you heard the good word,
yeah,
come to the
yeah.
and
They,
I'm
they
sorry, I
like
don't mean to step on
they
people
want to
that are
persuade.
religious.
The
Yeah,
witness wants to persuade us into being like, hey, the light is chaos. I'm the
yeah,
thing that was like the fight for survival. I gave you life.
right,
Like our Lord gave you life. Everything you know is
yeah,
wrong. It
yeah,
feel with
and
that
that,
in mind, it feels very like that.
yeah. Well, and using that as a good analogy, because it's not just like, it's not just like evangelistic Christianity or anything like that. A lot of religions are set up this way, to go out and teach the people, and it's not just that in and of itself, but using a Bible is a good way, or using any kind of book that was written for a purpose of getting people to align with one another in one way or another to help propel whatever the agenda
Hmm.
is. So yeah, but this is good meat on the bone, because if you think about how they calcify everything, and you think about how what the witness is desiring is, through that race they learned, we need a winnower, we need a cleaver, we
Hmm.
need a symbol of death that can sow or reap the fields of wheat that grow out of this chaos. And
Hmm.
without it, unchecked, it's just going to keep growing and suffering. Existence will suffer, because the weeds will overgrow each other, they'll kill each other, or just this constant like suffering. And so they think that by you know restoring order in one way or another, and cleaving it all down to make it like nice and pretty, is the way to go.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, I think that's going to be it for our show this week. Our next episode will be on July 23rd. Uh,
wow.
yeah. So I think maybe we'll finally do In Spiral, the raid lore book from the
Oh, I
previous
hope so.
Lightfall. That would be
Yeah, we
fun.
need that one.
So
Yeah,
if you want to catch us at Loose Cannon Show, you can't see my finger because of this green screen, but at Loose Cannon Show on Twitter, as it's spelt down there, we're worth one of your 500, I don't fucking know how many, 500 tweets. We're worth checking it out. We have our pinned tweet has our link tree, which has everywhere you can find us. That if you came in late and you want to catch the rest of this, we'll be on YouTube, we'll be on Spotify, we'll be on everything, because it just all gets distributed. And
yeah,
Spotify, even now, should have, assuming it works this week, should have the video, which we don't really do too much special with the video, but if
yeah.
you like video, so there you go. Uh,
There you go.
have a good time, everybody. Bye.
Bye.